You ever just go live and see what happens? To see if just any um, racist people just want to enter into the chat immediately? Oh, hello, Joshua White. I'm just waiting for people because, in all seriousness, um, the last live that I had a lot of people um, saying Dr. King would not approve of this. I was like, you're white. Why are you using Dr. King about, I mean, like weaponizing and tokenizing his word to critique a community you're not a part of? It seems really weird to do that. Oh, man. So, that's what I want to know. How many people actually, read books by Dr. King anyway, for them to be saying Dr. King would not approve of this. How dare the blacks do this? Do they really? I am surprised by the support right now. Okay, y'all are just kind of coming on in. Hello, Evan Nutty Bar. I'm never saying it actually. That sucks. That's the thing in life that will make you complete. I feel like you need stronger ambitions in life. Good luck. I hope you find whatever it is that you're looking for. It just won't be me giving you some type of show. Is this an ASMR thing? I don't know, but I figured I'd ask. You know, I named this this live video. Don't be that white. Just don't be that person that says Dr. King wouldn't approve of this when critiquing black people. Why would you do that? Don't do that. You have no business doing that shit. Are y'all raising y'all hands saying that y'all the type of white people that be doing that shit? Y'all need to reevaluate y'all lives. I mean, why do you feel the need to critique a movement that isn't about you? And then the way that Dr. King is just viewed as just the sole activist. It's like black history does not start and end there. And I hate that in mainstream media it does. No, here, take food. I mean, I already ate, but thank you. Okay, Evan Nutty Bar, why do you feel the need that I should perform for you? That's my question. Why are you asking me to say random words? It's weird. It's like all unprovoked. You're asking me to provide a service. You understand how that's weird, right? But I do want to get to the point of this video in the first place. Hello from Missouri. You're in Missouri? Okay, so I'm in Oregon. So I have my reasons. Yeah, see that sounds a little bit creepy, Evan. Not gonna lie. I hope you're messing around. Hello. I am having a pretty good day. I had a meeting today, um, actually in person because I know this is political for some weird or whatever reason, but I'm vaccinated and so I feel a little more confident about going outside. So I had a meeting in person with another person in like we know each other through activist circles. The circle's pretty small here, so everyone kind of just knows everybody. So we met at the park and we were talking about um, basically just future plans, things like that. So I had a pretty good day. It was productive. Know what I'm saying? But here's the thing though. We were talking about protests and how we want them to go. And so I actually got a chance to meet up with um, this queer pastor who's a woman, a white woman, and she was talking about how she received a lot of opposition in Arkansas. She just recently moved to Southern Oregon from Arkansas, and I'm like, damn, that's how they roll down there. I mean, it kind of makes sense considering the Klan presence. I'm sure a gay pastor is not a part of their repertoire. Do you support Republicans? No, absolutely not. In no way, shape, or form. Do I support Republicans? I mean, we probably should just get that out the way right now. I do not, but then again, I don't support Democrats either. I critique them more so than Republicans because I feel like there's no further need to critique Republicans. We already know where they stand. And then with Democrats, it's like, okay, come on now. Come on now. You know y'all wrong for what y'all did at the border with Haitian refugees. You're accepting of Afghan refugees, but not Haitian. And then it's like, come on. Come on. Biden is a joke. And yes, Biden is a joke, and so is Trump. Are you a socialist communist? Um, that is a great question. Um, what this country thinks is communism actually isn't. And what, for some reason, they're afraid of the word socialism, even though everyone is entitled to Social Security. Like it's in the name, and we have that benefit. But for some reason, that is just a scary concept. I don't know why, but whatever. I mean, we have public school, like that is socialism. It's a form of it. And then when we talk about, okay, let's make college more accessible, then they're like, no, that's too much. It's too much socialism. Really? Because just so you know, okay, if you say so, if you say so, that is definitely a program that our taxes pay for. But okay, I mean, it's based off of property taxes. You know, which school districts get the most funding. It's really sad. Yeah, exactly. Education should be free, but apparently that's too radical. It's too radical to think that education should be readily accessible. I mean, that's weird, don't you think? Where we have safety net programs, and then we have Americans that think this is a handout, this is too far. We're turning communist. What? We're far from it, I can assure you. Socialism wouldn't be good. Okay. Why the name of the live? Oh, because the last live that I had, there was a lot of white people saying that Dr. King wouldn't approve or, something like that. I'm like, nobody asked you within the privilege of your whiteness to critique Dr. King's words or the social justice movements that black people are leading. Nobody asked you. Why do you feel that you have an opinion on this? That's a strange question, Shaq4554. If your sister falls in the woods while being chased by a killer, do you help her or leave her. What kind of question is that? Of course I would help them. What, you just gonna leave your fam behind? Okay. I mean, being anti-socialism. Okay, why should education be free for one? It's not. It's called property tax. I literally just did say that. Is that it is literally paid for with property taxes. But then again, the the neighborhoods that have the higher property value get access to more resources. That's the thing. And to my knowledge, we're the only country that does that because, as you know, if you pay attention to a lot of the I don't know. There's quite a few TikTok creators that talk about how a black couple will ask their white friend to pretend like it's their house and then get it appraised versus them getting it appraised and then have the property value skyrocket because the realtor thinks that the person that owns the house is white. Seeing stuff like that, it just lets you know that America hasn't changed all that much when it comes to systemic racism. Like that's just it. And I remember, I mean, since we're still on the topic of conversation of um, education and schools, so back in Baltimore City, we had this school assembly. I went to Lamell Middle School. It doesn't exist anymore. Got shut down, and they named it something different. I don't know what it's called now, but it happens. But anyway, back when it was called Lamel, we had this school assembly where it was about AYP or I forget what it stands for, but it's this state testing that apparently if you don't score a certain way, you don't get nearly as much funding, which I don't know. I remember um, later on in my school career when I was in high school, where for my senior project, it was about education reform. And one of the resources that I used was this documentary called Waiting for Superman, where it talked about that. And a lot of the schools that were talked about were school districts on the East Coast. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. And what I learned from that is, or at least my takeaway, was that it's in a rock and a hard place where you can't achieve education reform unless you tackle capitalism and the original foundation on which this country was built because underserved communities simply just means overly exploited communities. And that's just it. I've had a very different experience going to school in Baltimore City versus going to school in a state that's predominantly white. And that's not by accident, as much as people would like to believe. It's kind of funny that y'all are saying, what? White people aren't any more privileged than you are. Yeah, okay. You're describing No Child Left Behind. It may have been from that era because I was born in 95, so that does fit the timeline, but that's only one of um I guess one of the topics of discussion in education reform. Honestly, what that ended up doing was no matter how much the child failed, it just put them up to the next grade, even though they did not understand the tools necessary to progress to the next grade. So it just put them at more of a disadvantage than, like, it was just a really bad policy looking back at it. That's really weird. What you playing, PS5 recording on your iPhone 12, you're so oppressed. I mean, I guess I should be flattered that you think I would ever own an iPhone 12 or an iPhone of any kind, really. Oh, but quick question. Where do phone companies get the raw materials necessary to make iPhones or smartphones in general? Just take all the time you need to look that up. It's like there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. I'm so sorry. Who is Joy Reid? The racist race baiter. It's like whatever you gotta say, I guess. What have black people contributed to make USA the greatest nation aside from working on the fields? Wow, that is whew, um racist as fuck. That is that is seething. I feel like a lot of these things you could just Google. I mean, a better question is why don't you know these things? Because black people are a part of this country, and the fact that history is somehow taught separate, it's astounding, you know? Sometimes one question that I do like to ask uh, white folks when I'm getting paid to lead a discussion about race, I like to ask them simple questions like, at what grade were you in when you started reading a black author? And I get a variety of different answers. Most of them, like, much later in life, like college level. And sometimes they say not at all, not until they joined the social justice movements and they started looking at off at black authors. Victim mentality. I swear that is a favorite term y'all like to use. So bad policy equals racism. Historically, yes. Yes. Because it disenfranchises black and brown communities at a higher rate than white counterparts. Yes. It's part of it. Joy Reid is on MSNBC News anchor. I mean, I guess that is now a thing that I know. Um, why they're comparing me to that person, I'll never know. I mean, mm. What? You are such a hoe. My roommate is such a hoe. Oh my God, Zachary, do what you do. I am not involved in your shenanigans. Unfortunately, because we run in the same activist circles, it is irresponsible to try to have a fling. So then there's that. It's called professionalism, Zachary. Floozy. I saw your tagline. Please explain. Okay, well, part of my job working for So Equity is to essentially have the race talk with white people because we live in Southern Oregon. And that's how that works. And I know a lot of people don't believe it or have so many negative things to say about it, and I'm like, okay, listen. So before I even have the conversation, there are a plethora of reading material that I have to um, read through before having the conversation in the first place. Like, for example, and I do like to use this example quite a bit because it's more recent and it makes sense. So I was asked to lead a book discussion for the Jackson County Library, and we did Uncle Tom's Cabin because, well, I chose it. And there's a reason why I chose it. It's because when I went to school here in Southern Oregon, I went to McLaughlin Middle School, and it was there that practically the only thing that they learned about Black history was reading Uncle Tom's Cabin. And that is problematic for so many reasons. But the fact that you chose a book that was written by a white woman on the Black experience of slavery, and you don't think that that's a problem? So basically, I chose this book and I was like, hey, so here are some Black authors that wrote about similar themes, but can you note the difference? Can you note the difference between this Black person literally talking about their experience versus what this white savior tried to do? Simple. And that's what I do. And I also talk about the tokenizing of Dr. King's words because a lot of, I want to say, Republicans and liberals, that's the one thing that they do have in common is that, they talk about, oh, Dr. King was all about nonviolence. And it's like, yes, you only cherry pick the phrases that you like. Why you do this? It's probably because race makes you uncomfortable, and Dr. King trying to paint Black liberation as just this movement where Black people do nothing while they're being chased by dogs or chased down with water hoses. Like, this was the reality of protesting during Dr. King's time. And I talked about this during the Uncle Tom's Cabin book discussion, saying that, listen, Uncle Tom in the book is passive. He essentially, no matter how much wrong is done to him, he always remains a pious man. So the idea that people that are experiencing oppression have to be as cordial as possible about it. Why do I have to be peaceful to you if I'm quite literally suffering from a system that was designed quite literally to disenfranchise my race? And so that was the same thing that they tried to paint Dr. King as. And the things that they leave out are the times that he has critiqued the hypocrisy of white churches. He has critiqued the hypocrisy of Black churches. He has critiqued politicians of the time. The way that people say that he was a Republican could not be farther from the flipping truth. But it's like, you don't know that because you don't actually read what it was that he had to say. And then people just narrow down his word to the I have a dream speech. He's had so many more sermons and speeches than that. Why? Wow, calling Black people lazy. Why? Because We don't want to work for free. That's incredible. She's liberal. Joy Reid is very knowledgeable. I don't get how it's an insult. Well, see, um, it's meant to be an insult because, Republicans hate liberals and I guess vice versa. But here's the thing though, is that liberalism, it it creates a safe environment for fascism to grow. That's the honest to God truth. Like um the difference between a liberal and a leftist is this, is that a liberal will tell me that change is meant to be gradual, whereas a leftist would want fucking results. That's honestly a rough idea of how I feel about liberals versus actual leftists. You know, can you please answer how black people contributed in making America the greatest nation? I want you to do that research yourself. You should analyze why you don't know. And to say that we're the greatest nation, we have the potential to be, but I can assure you we're not. I feel like if we still have homelessness, if we still have hunger, if we still have um, law enforcement that don't protect people, but instead protect the interests of the ruling class, we, how are we the greatest nation in the world? I mean, we don't have universal health care. We did not have adequate safety nets for when um, a pandemic happened. Largely, when fires happen here in Oregon, and this is, more as a local perspective, it has to be the community that takes care of the community, but at the same time, it's still inherently classist because we do have a prominent homeless population here in Southern Oregon, and that's also another part of my job is that um, I raise awareness about how the city of Medford, where I live, is treating homeless people, and they're quite literally criminalizing homelessness um, and passing some very inhumane local legislation. And I know we have a very strong opposition. There are a lot of people that think, oh, we have shelters around here to quell the homelessness problem. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. A lot of these shelters are high barrier. A lot of these shelters have a level of discrimination about them that you don't hear about in the media. But it's like, have you actually talked to homeless people in order to find this stuff out? It's very simple, really. LOL, race talks aren't real. Well, my checks are. So cry about it. Nice. Okay, so I know I'm live right now, but I literally just got um, a message from one of my activist associates, and I have the information of the pastor that I was talking to today at the park, who we were having a conversation about Dr. King and how she wants to point out the hypocrisy that goes on here in the Rogue Valley concerning Christians. She believes that it's very possible to be a Christian without being a bigot. And in order to do that, you have to have these types of conversations. And, I enjoyed her company. She completely understood where I was coming from. I was like, hey, listen, so my dad's side of the family is Jehovah's Witness and my mom's side of the family is Baptist. And so basically, our household is like a world war, but in religion, and it's never a happy conversation, right? So, um I told her about how I was agnostic for a while simply because of seeing firsthand how people will um, justify their actions simply based off of their religion. Like, oh, um, my religion says that homosexuality is bad. And it's like, why do you believe in denying people basic human rights simply because they are gay? What is wrong with you? Just shit like that. And that's a lot of what white folks tend to get butthurt about, is that they don't think that I talk about the issues within the black community as well. Is that I also talk about the fact that there's a lot of homophobia, there's a lot of transphobia, there is a lot of misogynoir, and you know, everyone is subject to a conversation about toxic behavior and unlearning that. If we're going to call for change, well, it has to start within ourselves. And whenever the topic of race comes up, white folks get defensive about it. That's it. It's just as simple as that, really. Racism is a manufactured problem. Yes. And who manufactured it? That would be white people. Not many black folks in Southern Oregon. Exactly. Exactly. There are not many black folks in Southern Oregon. And so it kind of shows because of how white people have interacted with me in the past. It's very clear. It's super clear. Are you only good at talking about race? And then we have man cock 100 saying she's not good at that. It's like, remain upset all you want to. You're in my live for some reason. I don't go to your page and see what you're up to because I don't care. What racist acts have you experienced? Why do you feel that black people have to justify that they have experienced racism? It's like, why do you feel that we need your approval for that? To answer your question, though, um, where to start? Um, I remember when I first started going to middle school here in Oregon, and completely unprovoked, a group of white people came up to me. These were, I didn't know at the time what they were, but now I know. So they're called preps. So a group of preps in middle school come up to me and they're like, "Do you wash your hair?" And it's like, why do white people think that black people are just inherently dirty? See, that's racist as fuck. But that's
because of how white people treat dreads. Like black folks wouldn't have an issue with white folks doing dreads if they treated them with some fucking respect.
mm,
No white folks wash their fucking dreads. And so they think, like, by extension, well, black folks don't wash their fucking dreads. An African American individual will wash their dreads, will wash their hair, will make it up to the fucking upteenth level.
I don't know if other people can hear you, Zachary.
I mean, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, they can hear me. Just because white people don't wash their dreads does not mean that black folks have dirty hair. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if y'all heard that, but go off. So basically, what that lets me know is that you don't, and I'm referring to white folks in Southern Oregon, you don't interact with black people a lot. That was kind of obvious. And then on top of that, when you do see a black person, why do you feel the need to ask them a million questions about their hair or about what they eat at home? It's like, it's very clear that you don't know how to interact with people that are visibly different from you. It's weird. It's very weird. And then, these are microaggressions that I'm talking about. Where the racism lies is the stereotypes and how harmful they can be, and how we how the system is still in place today, how we perpetuate it. Like, I mean, I've spoken a little bit about medical racism and how believing that black people experience less pain, well, that contributes to why we're dying at the hands of doctors, if not by cops. It's because of things like that. See, that's where the true concern is for me. But, I could explain this all day long, tell you what resources to go to learn more about it, if you wanted to know statistics and things like that, you know. But here's the kicker is that you don't come here for that. You just come here to belittle an experience that somebody has that you don't have, simply because you want to validate your feelings over something that affects somebody that isn't you. It's like it's not always about you. It's really weird that y'all think that. Really, any man of color is a threat. Do I even need to explain how that's racist, or do you just understand? I feel like you should.
Just call them out and say that they're white and under 4 inches.
It's like, wow, like the fact that y'all think that all black people is on welfare, just all types of stuff. And and then what is with demonizing those that are? I feel like if we live in a society where we are one medical bill away from homelessness, that's a reflection of our society and how we're not taking care of our people. Like, that's a sign that we need to do better. But individualism have people out here boasting that they work 80 hours, 90 hours a week,
I
and
work 90 hours a week for 7, 8 pennies a day, you fucking liberal. I'm
and little do you know,
sick.
you're being exploited. It's like, what was Labor Day for?
It's for the liberals that hate working slave labor. I mean freedom labor.
Because our government, but you say racism. Yes, because racism quite literally is a system, and there's a wonderful book called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein where he talks about our government's hand in racist behavior,
Okay,
things
so
that
this doesn't.
disenfranchise the black community. Like, literally, when Republicans say 94 crime bill, 94 crime bill, it's like, yes, you're aware of one piece of legislation that has disenfranchised the black community. What if I told you there was more than one? With with basically all of the presidents.
That's like every live stream I do. 94 crime bill, 94 crime bill. Honey, you think as a president I like?
Ah, yes, of course, this one would believe that it's a pandemic. Okay, whatever.
Pandemic. Get the vaccine
There's
or
like
die from
99
boredom.
messages, and I am failing miserably at trying to keep up with all of this because y'all are going back and forth with the just microaggressive comments. Um, And then this random person is saying, I'm from Germany and universal health is bad. Sure, buddy.
Shut the fuck up, you fuck. Let me guess. Let me guess with that motherfucker. They go out to any single political protest and they've been arrested several times for being a literal Nazi.
Mm. And then this Marty Pav 63, you are on every live. You are my biggest fan. I just
Dom, Dom, they just love your tits and hate your politics.
just blame the white folks for all your failings. Who the hell
No,
said I
they're
was
your
failing?
simp. They are your simp. They hate you, but they're so attracted to you.
Can't she just get a real job? Her job isn't real to me, therefore it's not, and she needs to get a real one. It's like, first, I don't have a job and I'm just a welfare queen. Next is I have a job, but it's not valid enough to be a real job, and therefore I should go out and get one. Clearly, I live in an apartment, so, I have a roof over my head. That warrants a paycheck needed to keep things on. And as you can see, my lights is on. I don't.
Dom, Dom,
Hatred is
don't you
weird.
understand? Don't you understand? You dumb bitch. Unless you are swinging a sledgehammer for 12 hours a day, your job doesn't count, according to this other white man.
Why are you adding to the racism with white folks' comments? What?
You
That's not how.
are not.
Zachary! Thank you!
I'm sorry, but like they're trying to say, well, I'm white. I experienced racism. Shut the fuck up. My
Stop screaming, sir!
my people experience discrimination, but not racism. You fucking ass fuck.
Toxic behavior is what you're doing right now because you're hurting my white fifis.
Dumb. How dare you acknowledge that racism exists? Don't you
Generalizing all white folks. You know what? Not doing that got me into more trouble than actually doing that. My aunt married a white man, and I thought, Uncle James is pretty damn cool. So one day, me and my aunt Tasha, we are driving up to Connecticut, and this is back obviously when I lived in Baltimore. So we had a family reunion, or at least my aunt did, because my aunt and my mom have different fathers. So this is my aunt's side of the family, and I'm like the darkest person there because my aunt is, pretty fair skinned. So we go up to Connecticut where the family reunion is. For some reason, the resort couldn't find our reservation. So all my aunt had to do was call her white husband, 5 minutes on the phone with him, and our reservations were magically found. And I'm like, wow, white people have magical powers where they can just, manifest some results, right? So that was my encounter with a white person, is that I had an Uncle James where it was a positive experience. But then when I come to Oregon, oh my God, some of the most ignorant fucking people I've ever met in my fucking life. Why is your knee jerk reaction to seeing a black person for the very first time to ask them how often they wash their hair? And we're just talking microaggressions. Healthcare is a fundamental human right, and I'm dying on this hill. Same, same.
They are based and they are welcome to drink wine with me any fucking time.
This person is so triggered. They're like, okay, so this person is someone you don't know, but it's like a play on words or whatever. So he's all like, block me, victim, and it's like, you stumbled onto my life. You're my biggest fan. Um, why do you feel whites need your approval? Nope, never said that. It's just that you can't call yourselves inclusive or diverse when how you interact with people of color and black people is so microaggressive and just so blatantly ignorant that you need diversity and inclusion plans in public spaces. Like, for example, Grants Pass, Oregon, just like Medford, Oregon, are historical sundown towns. And one of the things that So Equity did was um, we were sent um, the diversity and inclusion paperwork from the Grants Pass School District. They wanted us to look it over because we are a racial equity group, and so that's our job. So we're like, hey, so here are the revisions for it to be more inclusive.
Y'all do good work.
And, that would be how you do it, is that you have to ask the people that are actually affected by these things about how to improve it. If you're going to look at things through a constant white lens, you're not going to get anywhere. If that makes you butthurt, that's a you problem, not mine. I still cash the checks when I do this shit.
In the immortal words of every black actor ever, when did this become your opinion?
I know, right? But focus on you, Zach.
I'm about
Okay,
to go live myself. Fucking sue me.
you sue me.
I'll sue you. Fuck me, fucking you, fucking me, fucking
I,
you.
I love that TikTok. But anyway,
So
here's another freaking comment. Why do black people often deny that white people can experience racism as well? Because you can't. Because you
I will
cannot.
experience fucking prejudice from other white folks, but I have never experienced racism, and I am whiter than mayonnaise mixed with an eggshell doused in bleach. Motherfucker, you cannot be racist against white folks. Shut your upper middle class rich ass the fuck up.
Okay, stop screaming. I swear, you go over the top for no damn reason.
I'm white.
Stop screaming, jackass.
We have personified going over the top. Look at all of our music.
Yes, white male rage is a problem. I'm
White
aware.
male rage. White male
Now
rage.
cool it. God damn. Anyway, so that's just it, is that white people are not marginalized or belong to a marginalized group because they are white. Actually, when we're talking about systemic oppression, we're talking about women that happen to be white because they often experience sexism within a patriarchal society. See, that is something that they go through. Their struggle isn't because they're white, their struggle is because they're women. Or, let's say, for example, because we also live in an ableist society, if they if a person that happens to be white has a wheelchair, their life is not made more difficult, as in obstacles are not put into their path because they are white. It's because they're disabled. That's the difference. But when we talk about um, an ableist society, when we talk about a patriarchal society where sexism is rampant, um, we say to center people of color's voices and black folks because it's more severe, because there is that intersectionality of race along with the other struggle of being in a wheelchair or being a woman. I mean, okay, so being a black woman in America, um, there's the word misogynoir, and that's receiving anti blackness behavior from black men and also receiving anti blackness behavior from non black POC groups and white people. I cannot tell you how many times um, white guys out here, in public view, they will try to ridicule me and say racially based jokes or something like that. Well, this is back in middle school, obviously, right? So that's then. And then now, or at least a couple years back, some of them would magically wind up in my DMs talking about some DTF. And I'm like, wait a minute. You were saying all of that racist shit in middle school, and all of a sudden you want to know if I'm DTF. Excuse you? That's called fetishization. Is that you still believe black people are lesser than, but that won't stop you from rolling up into a black woman's DMs uh, wanting to get some Cocoa Puffs. That is some bullshit.
You did not just say Cocoa Puff.
Yes, I go through it so I get to fucking say it.
I'm gonna call the Flintstones for this level of bullshit right now, motherfucker.
Yes, but you didn't get picked on because you were white. And then the microaggressions based on racism is not the only form of racism. The way that kids of color and black children get ridiculed by their white counterparts is racially based. Can you turn that shit down? Like, every single time there's some racial fuck shit that happens where a white person, a black person is involved, a white person will be all like, is there a dad in the home? I bet you don't know your dad. And it's like, that is based on a stereotype that is racist.
That hasn't been a black thing recently. Like, I've seen that on my fucking videos. Like, it's now such a weird thing to say, oh, absent dad energy. It's like, motherfucker, why are you so insecure about you losing your dad? You think I want my dad in my life?
Mm.
Like, just because, like, I'm existing as you, oh, dad not here, energy. Do you think me having a dad would make me a better person? Honey, have you met my sperm donor?
But anyway, so there's, another person, the same person that clearly, they're my biggest fan, Marty Pav 63. You've experienced nothing. Wow. It's just like literally the black people's experience you feel needs your approval. Do you see how weird that is? And then you say, that towel is wrapped way too tight. See, that's microaggressive as fuck. Because, first of all, this isn't even a fucking towel. Like, bro, if you're racist, just say that. But at least I prefer this overt racism compared to the covert racism that spews from white liberals because holy fuck. It's like when you tell them, okay, listen, so here are some of the ways that you've been problematic, and this disenfranchises people of color and black people, depending on what it is that they're doing, they will automatically get butthurt. Like if we say, listen, so it's racist for you to participate in closed practices. Literally, when we say stuff like that, when you literally culturally appropriate a religion that is a closed practice, y'all don't want to hear that shit. And that's the problem that I have with not all, but quite a few white liberals. So interacting with white Republicans is a hell of a lot easier than interacting with white liberals on that regard, because at least the Republican is definitely being overtly motherfucking racist. They can act oblivious all they want to, but it is what it is. Like literally, y'all will. I was giving these examples simply because of that. They are examples. But then again, it also represents the microaggressive shit that I experienced today. The fact that there is something called the Crown Act, because hair discrimination is very real and it affects a black person's ability to be employed simply based off of their hair. And you can look it up. It's called the Crown Act. This is something that's recent. And It goes far more than being picked on in middle school. It's like literally when your hair is viewed as problematic, it's not taught in beauty schools, it's not like the education that goes into how to do black hair, the fact that it's just such a mystery because it doesn't matter to white society. That is the problem. Again, like you keep saying the same racist rhetoric. They are 13% of the population, but they commit 50% of the crimes. It's like, no, that statistic is wrong as fuck. And I don't know where you get it from, but you say it all the time. Thank you, bumblebees. Literally, very little exposure. And it's like, I had a conversation with um, a white woman who had a degree in a STEM program. She did not know what a sundown town was. It's like you literally have the privilege of not knowing, whereas black people have to know this stuff because it's a life or death situation. We have to know our surroundings because we're liable to run into white supremacists that want to drive us out of town. And these sundown towns still exist to this day. Purple, orange, 134 is like, okay, and that's your opinion, but you still here watching. I mean, go off, I guess. I am watching because you and your roommate are hilarious. See, thank you, because we do be having our funny moments sometimes. I love that asshole, but sometimes you just want to wring him by the neck. I swear, but I get on his nerves too, you know? It's how we hug. How many white friends do you have? Are you open for change or just complaining? And it's like, what what is the reason that when black people talk about their experiences with white people, they always view it as complaining? And again, why do you feel that my experience has to be validated by you? That's odd. And then this guy right here, oh, lol, she's got 10 people watching. Okay, and you took the time out your night to report that in my comments. How well is your life going? I guess. So weird. But, anyways, so like I said way back in the beginning of this video, I had a really awesome time talking to this queer pastor who moved up here from Arkansas. And we had conversations about um, basically talking about real history because she absolutely understood what I said when I say that people take Dr. King's words out of context. They don't research all of what he said. And also, a lot of his sermons aren't even taught in schools to begin with for white people to be critiquing black people on anything. So, with that being said, yeah, real history, as in you go to the library, you pick up a book and go, We should probably all learn this in a classroom, not yeefreedomeagle.com, you know. Like you're that there is a such thing as reputable sources, and I feel like a book written by Dr. King, if we're going to talk about Dr. King, would be an example of teaching real history. There's a lot more than just the I have a dream speech. You are stereo. I wish that were true. I wish that were true. But why is it that a lot of black TikTokers on here have similar experiences? Why is that? Why? And if you don't follow a lot of black TikTokers, when we do talk about our experiences with microaggressive white folks, then that's on you. The one thing that I like for people to keep in mind, and by people, I mean the ones that live here in Southern Oregon, when we do have conversations regarding race, is that in a state where there were black exclusionary laws, um, when Oregon joined the Union, it's important to note that that level of hatred does not die. That racism does not die. It didn't die with Dr. King magically. No, racism transforms to fit the political climate of the time. You know, what people fail to realize is that you're saying that, oh, Dr. King wouldn't approve of this, this, that, and the third, and oh, what about nonviolence? You're forgetting about one part. He was still murdered. He was still murdered. So let's not sit here and pretend like you have the interests of black people at heart, because you don't. And
Don't you get it? Hippity hop, hippity yee. MLK died. Racism, go away with ye. And that's it. We're all equal now.
exactly, like racism just didn't magically, disappear because Dr. King just went to sleep. No, he was murdered, he was assassinated, and racism is still alive and well to this day. And the fact that y'all are like, what, that's not racism, when literally there have been how many instances of police brutality and how many stories about medical racism, just so many things that you could look up, but instead you choose to just be microaggressive in some random black person's TikTok live as if you're doing something.
Oh, Dom, you don't get it. They said the N word with an AR at the end, so it doesn't exist anymore.
Seahawks fan 360. Oh, I heard all about Dr. Martin Luther King and I went to a predominantly white high school. Yeah, I'm sure. You want to know the problem of what I have with is that I highly doubt you learned any further than that about black history.
Also, you have Seahawks in your name. Your opinion doesn't matter. You are the bottom of the NFL.
Okay,
Yo,
I
but
don't really have.
NFL matter. I don't get sports. I'm a Raiders fan. But you're a Seahawks fan. You are named after fucking birds that eat French fries in Florida.
I honestly don't know if y'all can hear him, but I don't have an opinion about the NFL because I don't watch sports. So that's his
You're a
opinion. I don't really care.
Seahawks fan. Your opinion is as valid as a seagull that eats McDonald's.
And a lot of black TikTokers are in love with wonderful white folks. It's all about perspective. Yeah, okay. In
Okay,
love is
wait a
a
minute.
strong word and a weirdly worded sentence at that. I wouldn't say in love with white folks. It's like I follow a lot of black TikTokers, and the one thing that we all talk about is our interactions with white people and how we are minding our black business, and y'all just walk up to us with that bullshit.
I mean, hasn't that been the entirety of Black history? Is just minding your fucking business, and then white folks getting offended by, how dare you, knight? How dare you not say hello to me?
Why do you focus on the negative? It's like y'all favorite pastime is literally gaslighting black people and people of color, and It's astonishing. I mean, not necessarily astonishing because I'm really not surprised. Y'all will do this until the end of flipping time. But that's just how y'all roll. It's so sad. It does not take away from the fact that racism is still alive and well. And why you think that it needs your approval for it to be a fact, it,
Also, y'all
I
act,
swear, the
y'all acting like
caucasity writes itself.
y'all acting like right wingers have ever been on the right side of history, and acting like black folks ain't just trying to mind their own business and be left the fuck alone.
No one is arguing that racism doesn't exist. Yes, there are a lot of people that are arguing that.
Dumb. Black people are allowed to exist. How can racism exist? Is their entire argument. Shit, I know I'm not supposed to hate my own race,
You
but
just want to
fuck.
be a victim. Like, imagine saying, "Oh, I learned all about Dr. K in my white high school. You're just being a victim." It's like, apparently, you didn't learn a fucking lot. Because how white privileged is it to say, "Oh, I've learned about Dr. King already, and you're just being a victim"? It's like, really? Again, you are judging a black person's experiences while at the same time tokenizing one black man that said, "I have a dream." Really? Incredible. It is incredible. But you know what? Since we are on the topic of conversation of Dr. King, don't be that white. Is the name of the live, and for a reason, because the book that I have is called A Knock at Midnight, and we're going to look into the literal sermon that he gave called A Knock at Midnight. It's where he talks about the parable of Luke chapter 11, verse 5 through 6. Which of you who has a friend will go to him at midnight and say to him, "Friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine has arrived on a journey, and I have nothing to set before him." So then that's when he goes in depth of the 3 loaves of bread representing the bread of peace, the bread of freedom, and the bread of justice. That is very evident in this particular sermon. So let me see if I can get to the part where he talks about that. Because I'm only doing this with one hand, so it's a little tricky.
I mean, I'm jealous and everything. I'm a babysitter. I fucking do the casual thing.
I feel like it was the midway through the sermon that he said this. Come on. Okay. So on page 72, this is where it is. Because I'm literally reading the book right now. It says, actually, no, I'm going to go to page 71 because I just read the top of the page, the last sentence, and it's from the part of the sermon that I wanted to read from. Okay, so on page 71. Living in a world which has become oppressively impersonal, many of us have come to feel that we are little more than numbers. Ralph Borsodi, in an arresting picture of a world wherein numbers have replaced persons, writes that the modern mother is often maternity case number 8434, and her child, after being fingerprinted and footprinted, becomes number 8003. and that a funeral in a large city is an event in Parlor B with Class B flowers and decorations at which preacher number 14 officiates and musician number 84 sings selection 174. Bewildered by this tendency to reduce man to a card in a vast index, man desperately searches for the bread of love. That's one. When the man in the parable knocked on his friend's door and asked for the 3 loaves of bread, he received the impatient retort, "Do not bother me. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot get up and give you anything." How often have men experienced a similar disappointment when at midnight they knock on the door of the church? Millions of Africans patiently knocking on the door of the Christian church where they seek the bread of social justice have either been altogether ignored or told to wait until later, which almost always means never. Millions of American Negroes, starving for the wants of the bread of freedom, have knocked again and again on the door of so called white churches, but they have usually been greeted by a cold indifference or a blatant hypocrisy. Even the white religious leaders who have a heartfelt desire to open the door and provide the bread are often more cautious than courageous and more prone to follow the expedient than the ethical path. One of the shameful tragedies of history is that the very institution which should remove man from the midnight of racial segregation participates in creating and perpetuating the midnight. It's worth talking about in schools because having to constantly go over this and then people not believing me at first when I say, yes, Dr. King did say this and he also said this, but then they don't want to believe me. And it's like, you don't have to believe me. Here are the books, read them, and ask yourself, why aren't they a part of your school's curriculum? Why um, are certain parts of Black history etched out? Why have you only received a fraction, a portion? Because in order for you to fully understand what Black liberation means, you have to be able to look at the history of why we need it in the first place. And then analyzing anti Blackness that goes on in Africa as well. Because there's also another book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. It's a wonderful book. And it offers a critique on how that all went down. But again, it's not told from the perspective that Africa is just being exploited. It just is told from the point of view that Africa was just such a backward wasteland that just needed the white man's help. And that's not the case at all. It's literally told as a justification for why subjugation should continue. And it's something similar that happens in America whenever Black people talk about injustice, how stereotypes are used as justification for subjugation. Tale as old as time, really. You ignore facts based on your emotional opinion. I didn't know that my emotional opinion involved a book literally written by Dr. King, but go off, I guess.
Go off, white liberal.
Who is your favorite author? Um, I would have to say that Zora Neale Hurston is my favorite author because a lot of what she has written about the Black experience is true to this day. Like when she wrote What the White Publisher Won't Print, it was an article that she wrote about the stereotypes of black people and people of color. And she also wrote an article called The Pet Negro System, where she talks about how tokenizing works. And I never thought that an author could put it so eloquently before. And it wasn't something that I was I was privy to seeing. Um, because I guess the only other author that I came across that talked about the black experience in a creative way was also Langston Hughes. But every writer has their own style, and it just so happens that Hurston chose two topics that are really important to me because it still holds true to this day that stereotypes are told in order to further dehumanize the people they're meant to diminish. You realize every race is against y'all. That's just it. You don't have to tell me. I'm very much aware. My job is to talk about why that anti blackness exists in POC groups. That's how white supremacy works. The fact that we are in a color caste system, but people don't seem to believe me. They're like, "What? I work hard for what I have." Da 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 da. And I'm like, "Okay, listen. There's this book that I read called How the Irish Became White. And in this book, it talks about how did the Irish immigrant learn of the black person's place in America. And no true words have been spoken. How do you know? How and the title is as it implies, is that it talks about how immigrants like the Irish assimilated into whiteness. And I've often wondered why. Why do white people say, but the Irish were slaves too? If that were the case, why did they advocate for black chattel slavery? If that were the case, why didn't they join forces to end slavery? It was only maybe a handful that believed, okay, slavery is wrong, but then you had the majority that believed, oh, but we want nothing to do with black people. And like I said, I'm from Baltimore City, Maryland. It's not, anti-blackness absolutely exists within the Irish community in Baltimore. Do you know how many race riots happened there, just there alone?
What? You setting the East Coast as the bare minimum for race riots? Honey, you gonna need a list.
Racism exists because Democrats thrive on it. Why is it that people reduce racism down to one particular party? How many times do I have to say this? There is no political party that exists in America that has black people's interests at heart. There's none. Um, Go farther left because leftists don't like Democrats either because of this. So you've given thousands of problems. What is the solution? Well, that depends. Do you want to work on the solution or do you want to continue to be part of the problem? Because the very first thing that people need to do if they were to go into the field of social justice activism would be to check their privilege. That's something that every single person has to do if they are going to go into the work of social justice activism. People are going to maybe laugh, react, and think that I'm talking out the side of my neck, but that's the honest to God truth. And that's something that black people also have to do because if you follow black TikTokers that are trans, if you follow those that are gay, you will eventually come across content where they talk about the transphobia that exists in the black community, the homophobia that exists in the black community. So you can't say that Black Lives Matter if only some of the Black Lives matter to you. And in the social justice world, we have to lift as we climb. So that means we have to address the transphobia across the communities. We have to address the homophobia. We have to address the ableism. We have to address the different forms of privilege. But on here, in my comment section, there's an array of white folks that still don't believe that white privilege is a thing and that black privilege somehow is a thing. And it's like, my life or my experience in this country is not made easier because I'm black. My experience in this country is made easier, or it does not play a part in the fact that I don't have to go through it in a wheelchair. I don't have a physical disability. So therefore, I am able bodied in a sense that in this ableist world, there are some things that I don't have to worry about. Um, that would be a form of privilege. Whereas a black person in a wheelchair is going to have a different black experience. That's just it. Like that's literally what I mean when I say check your privilege. And this is something that everybody has to do. But I already know none of you are willing to go to do the work to do this. I'm glad Obama didn't have this mindset. Oh yeah, he was the safe Negro. I'm so glad because this Negro was giving me indigestion. That's what you sound like. You're pushing racism propaganda. If you say so. If you say so. You have never experienced depression. In my white opinion, you have never experienced depression. Why do you think that that requires your approval, white man? That's my question. The most racist people I've met are black. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever you say, buddy. Whatever you say. We spent over a month studying Dr. King. The fuck you want a cookie? And you still on here critiquing black people. I feel like if you spent a month studying Dr. King, what exactly did you take from that lesson is the better question. Does that mean that you as a white person should judge how black people feel about liberation movements, or is that a sign, or did you take away from that experience that in order to be an ally, I have to center black voices and not my own? That's a genuine question that I hope you look within yourself to answer. Because leftists are the real cults. I'm sorry, but Republicans is out here taking horse medication. The real cult is y'all. Y'all were bowing down to a golden statue of Donald J. Trump. I don't want to hear shit. I don't want to hear shit. Yeah, like y'all literally I'm sorry, but I don't have so much as an Obama bumper sticker. Y'all got Trump on your cars. You got him tattooed on your ass. Like y'all did so much out of pocket shit. And we're just supposed to believe it. We're not supposed to take a Negro's word for it. They need to perform for us in order for us to approve of their experiences that they go through. They need our approval as white folks. That's how you fucking sound. No. And that's probably the reason why a lot of y'all say, oh, black people are the most racist people I've ever met. And it's like, no, you probably came across a black person that spoke their motherfucking mind about how you treat black people and you didn't like it. So then your white feelings got hurt. And now you're saying blacks are racist. That's not my fucking problem.
Not fake, but hopefully I'm a good role model for you. Not being an asshole, but hopefully doing my
Start making positive changes. Honey, again, the things that I have done in the community that I am a part of, we don't need your approval. See, I've already started doing the work in order to improve the community in which I live, while also centering black and brown voices on social justice topics. Hence, why when there is a protest going on, and there is one coming up in October, where I was asked by other activists my thoughts on how to center a protest around bodily autonomy and make sure that we are uplifting marginalized voices. To which I then said, all right, here's what you do. You know, we have to look into the history behind um, the lack of bodily autonomy that different groups face. So we're talking black women, we're talking brown women, we're talking um, people that have a disability, um, because they would also be a part of the black and brown community. Clearly, if they are black and brown, they're going to have different experiences than those that are white. We're also going to include white folks that have a physical disability in their experiences with doctors and things like that, because literally the point is bodily autonomy. And so if you're going to go to a protest that's about bodily autonomy and you see not only white people speaking but also black and brown people speaking, then you get to listen to a variety of experiences and note the difference. Why is it different? But we're talking about the same topic. And that's my job. You think that I'm triggered when white people look at me? Oh, you sweet summer child. Oh my. When we as a people going to let them know that they came from the black woman? And that's the honest to God truth, because we do have what's called the Eve gene. But they're not even ready to try to comprehend something like that because they still don't quite understand how anti blackness is a global thing.
I'm trying to fucking end this.
We still haven't even gotten there. We're still on American history, and they don't even grasp that. You know, they don't know about the Devil's Punch Bowl. They don't know about the different kinds of Black Wall Streets that we've had. The only law that they could ever possibly tell you that existed that specifically disenfranchised black and brown communities was the 1994 crime bill. That's the only thing they know.
The South will never resign. You didn't do
Like,
business.
we have so much work to do. Your hair wrap is fire. Well, thank you. You know, I go on Etsy a lot because I try not to use Amazon because I'm trying to, walk it like I talk it and, be against Jeff Bezos in every way, shape, or form. If I can buy from um, individual vendors, then I take that opportunity. So Etsy is where I got it.
Fuck you with your commercial. Let's
And it's really weird when people voice their experiences, how they are quick to say, "Oh my God, you're playing the victim." It's like, wow. I really hope none of your close friends comes out to you and tells you that something bad happened to them, because then you'll just call them a victim. It's like, it's not very supportive of you. It's not very live, love, laugh of you.
Shut the fuck up, white woman.
What about Tony Martin, Farrakhan, or Malcolm X? It's like, that's just it. Is that we're not centering all
You act like a white.
of the black revolutionary leaders. And I wish we could. I really wish we could. But when I say that they don't understand the basics, they do not understand the basics. Just based off of um the book study that I had when we were talking about Uncle Tom's Cabin, there were so many things that I opened their eyes to. I was like, listen, so here's the author talking about various forms of punishment um, within the book, but she only kind of addresses um, the rape that happens on the plantation, and she mentions a little bit of the colorism. So then, the way that I structured the book discussion is that I talked about um, buck breaking and telling them that slavery was a lot more brutal than you can ever possibly imagine. And here's the information on the Devil's Punch Bowl, and here's the information on the different forms of torture, and here's the information where I got it from if you want to look at it at your own time. See, it's not about trust me, bro, if I say something that happened in Black history. When I actually get paid to have these talks, I have my resources with me so that other people can look at them. And that's the gist of my job. It's a living. And apparently, I must be pretty damn good at it because people keep asking me to keep showing up. So I do. And, that's how we do it. And we also address the classism within our community as well because of the way that our local government treats the homeless. And it's like, and I don't think y'all understand, is that when I say lift as we climb, I mean everybody. But in order for us all to be successful in doing that, we have to recognize where we have privilege and the places where we don't have privilege. And that's not something that a lot of white folks are willing to do, which is normal because that has been the case throughout literal history.
Song is
Dr. King was the most hated man in America. Like, I mean, y'all can sit here and say that I would have stood with Dr. King. No, the fuck you wouldn't.
just sing this. No, I only cry when I eat a cookie. I won't cry if you don't feel your pretzel as well as never get it.
You assume that because black millionaires exist, that systemic oppression isn't real. Okay. Have you heard about a black historical figure by the name of Madam C.J. Walker? She was the first self made millionaire, right? Uh, because of her beauty products and, what have you. Lynchings were still being reported by Ida B. Wells. Lynchings were still occurring. Sharecropping was still an evident practice. And if you don't know what sharecropping is, Google it. Exploited labor was still happening amongst the 90% of the black community. We had the talented 10%, as W.E.B. Du Bois um, put it, but that doesn't take away from what's happening to the rest of the black population. What is wrong with you? A black person who's rich exists, so therefore racism no longer exists. Do you hear yourself?
Oh shit!
No matter how far we get, we will never be good enough for you. Virtue signaling. That's just it. I never asked for any white person's approval. I did not say that I was going to sit here and hold your hand and coddle your feelings and, do all. No. When did I agree to that? I never agreed to that. And there are plenty of black TikTokers whose entire account is all about talking about history and also talking about the black experience, like the Savage Loki is. He's amazing at it, and you could follow him and see what he has to say about black history. And I have seen some of his response videos where some of y'all have gone onto his page with that nonsense, and he set you right. And you're just afraid that the things that you believed about black people are actually harmful, and admitting it would therefore mean that you played a part in it. And nobody wants to be held responsible. White people like to throw around the word accountability, but they never want to take accountability for the role that they play in this system as well. And that's largely the fucking issue. Y'all will bring up black on black crime. I mean, you bring up black on black crime so many goddamn times, but I have yet to hear a white person say that World War One and World War Two were white on white crime. Riddle me that. It's like, if that's the case, if black people is just inherently violent and we're just, killing each other for no goddamn reason, well, guess what? White on white crime. Both world wars. There you have it. Did Barack Obama have black people's interests at heart? You know, largely, I'm going to have to go with no. And Republicans, mostly racist white people, like to think that, every black person just worships the ground that Obama walks on simply because y'all worship the ground that Trump walks on. And that's simply not the case. Every U.S. president has had a hand in genocide and war crimes. That's just a matter of fact. They've had a hand in it, and also having a hand in perpetuating systemic racism within this country. So it's almost as if no one person is going to fix America's problems. It's almost like this is a group project. However, as we've all recently seen from the pandemic, group projects are not America's strong point. Oh my God. You think that black people are insecure about our race? How many times do I have to tell you that white people will literally randomly come up to me with their microaggressions? I could attempt to be completely comfortable in my own brown skin, and here comes a white person with some random microaggression unprovoked. Y'all are the most concerned about what black people are up to be perfectly honest with you. That's why there's that sound on TikTok that says, when you're black, you're never really lonely. See, we understand the assignment. Y'all still clueless. Why would I want people to feel sorry for me? That's a waste of time. Black people sold their own people into slavery. It's like, okay, did you learn about that in school? Because I do. Um, I did talk about that topic during a book discussion, Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was later on in the book that I brought it up, but it was just to show the group where to go. So it was this article that I got from JStore.com where it's like a database of periodicals and scholastic journals and what have you. And one of the articles talked about what was the slave trade actually like in Africa. So basically, a lot of
I am a babysitter
a lot of misconceptions is that, oh, black people, so therefore this is a justifiable reason that slavery happened. And I feel like the best way to explain this would be to talk about coercion. If they did not sell a certain amount of people, they would become enslaved themselves. And plus, the traders themselves had guns. And so gun trading definitely changed the course of history in Africa as a whole. And then the worst part about all of this is that white people view Africa as one large mindset when in reality it's a diaspora. So it's not that black people sold their own people, it's just that you can't view people who live in Africa as members of different ethnic groups. Kind of like what happened with indigenous peoples here is that we don't center the fact that, and this is also in a book. Let me see. I have it here somewhere. It's called Black Slaves, Indian Masters. And in it, it talks about the fact that um, there were Chickasaws that traded in Choctaw scalps and vice versa to the British and to the French. Ultimately, their disdain for one another, as individual tribes, led to their ultimate downfall because the true enemy would be the white colonizers that subjected them to participating in the slave trade, genociding their people anyway. Um, that's how it works, is that whole divide and conquer type of mentality. And the fact that it's being repeated, you know?
bought groceries with my Credit Karma Money debit card and want a reimbursement. So I bought
Their
myself
own.
this trophy.
No, I didn't. Because again, you don't view Africans as individual ethnic groups. We're not all like one people. There are many different traditions and cultures that go on in Africa. And to go into the very real history of the African slave trade, see, I'm willing to actually do that. There's this one book called The Destruction of Black Civilization that does talk about this because I'm absolutely ready to talk about it because I have, in that it doesn't take away from the fact that Africa is still being exploited. How, um, if African chiefs didn't participate in the slave trade, they would become slaves themselves. And then on top of that, it's not like they were quote unquote selling their own people, they were selling prisoners of war as well. Like there are so many factors in this, and the fact that you think that, oh, well, black people just sold black people is that they may have had the same skin tone, I suppose, but they certainly didn't have the same damn culture. Ethnic group selling ethnic group. And then the fact that you then say that slavery has happened all over the world. Well, the only form of chattel slavery has happened with people of African descent. There's indentured servitude, there's serfdom, there's thraldom, but with chattel slavery, it's like race scientists, along with early Christians, have tried to justify religion, have tried to justify science as a reason why specifically people of African descent should be enslaved indefinitely, that they are just this inferior race that you should just use for labor purposes. Like that's one of the many differences. Imagine if white people and black people united. Honestly, if it's the kind of white people that spew racist ass rhetoric like some of y'all do, I don't want to unite with y'all. That's just it. Like, you think you're entitled to black spaces. That's also another problem. I think it is actually worth reading
Also, I cannot read your entire thing.
from the destruction of black civilization just to give you guys an example.
So yeah, you're gonna have a better life because you weren't abused, you say, you wanted to know when you were a child. So that's why you deserve
Okay, so right here is a good place to start. Um,
of an older person.
those sent into Africa from various lands could report back that the Africans were largely a peaceful people engaged in agriculture, mining trades, fishing, the arts, crafts of various kinds, and manufacturing such things as pottery, furniture, building materials, boats, weapons of war, etc. These settled states and their generally highly developed social and political systems indicate their advanced civilization, but they were ill prepared for war except against their neighbors, who also used the kind of spears, bows, and arrows which we had abandoned long since. In general, they have no swiftly moving mounted soldiers. 100 of our dashing cavalry men with firepower could put 10,000 of them to flight. They are a secretive people. For a while, they are fully aware of the great mineral wealth of the continent. They use it in a very limited way, mainly for personal adornment, and have no desire to open up to foreigners for world commerce that would greatly benefit them. Accordingly, they rigidly limit their trading activities, but mainly because Asians hold all of their sea coasts and have them cut off from the world and its trade. Finally, the whole of Africa could, with a few exceptions, be progressively taken over simply by picking off one small state after another, for the overall pattern of the continent is one of countless small independent groups, each for itself and itself alone. There is no unity among them, even for a common defense. Since it is the first duty of each chief to protect his people, all seem to be too proud to seek unity with other chiefs, thinking this might indicate a sign of weakness and itself invite attack. Therefore, it could have been truthfully reported to either Asia or Europe any time during the last 1,000 years that the widespread segmentation and attending disunity among the Africans made them easy to conquer and dominate. Some of these six hypothetical items would be valid as conclusions regarding a general situation only after the widespread collapse of strong African states when small splinter states spread over the continent like an epidemic. But as we shall see, the united resistance the
Because even though men of color are very much
of the
different,
blacks to white Asian innovations had been going on before recorded history began, and despite all the segmentations and endless invasions from the north, south, east, and west, there were black nations that kept up the resistance of 5,000 years right down into the 20th century. We shall review some of these in the chapters which follow. So that was from the destruction of black civilization, and that's why I say it's important to note that Africa is not a hive mind. So it's not that, oh, black people just sold other black people. It's literally an umbrella term. There are many different ethnic groups that exist in Africa. So many. And ultimately, Africa is still being exploited to this day. Oh, she's reading us a bedtime story. Okay.
there's no set way to practice most things.
Marty, and you don't read at all.
Because
It's very evident. Most white people want to be your friend. I don't want to be a friend with most white people. That's where you fucked up because you believe so many anti-black things before even meeting a black person, and it's very obvious when I interact with you. And I'm talking about interactions with white people that live in Oregon. Think about it. They live in a state that historically was supposed to be a white ethno state. A lot of their communities are mostly white. They only come into contact with blackness when they turn on the TV, and that's all that they can base that experience off of. This is why stereotypes are very harmful. Um, they don't uh, look at all of the historical contributions that black people have made. They don't look at history with an anti racist lens. They just say a few quotes about Dr. King and then keep it pushing. That's literally, and I wish I were kidding. I'm really not. That's the experience that I've had with history being taught in Oregon classrooms.
sad, and also look into the history of the gods and goddesses and make offerings to
And
them.
you want to say that, not all white
Like,
people, not all white people.
like the gods and
I hate to
goddesses,
break it to you, but
but you will feel them, hear
yes,
them, you will be around them, so you know when to do it.
open my heart. Yeah, listen. So I literally have a biracial child.
And North Dakota is
Um
really good. Still feels good.
my ex
Gotta
is
feel good.
white, and at first you can present yourself as an ally, you can present yourself as understanding, but then, you know, when push comes to shove, when something happens that you don't like, you automatically start spewing racist comments. And that was one of the many problems that my ex had, is that, okay, so you can't call yourself an ally if I quite literally explained to you how fetishization
Yes,
works.
it does need a
And
racist
a
start
black
to
woman
it.
is literally telling you
At
this,
its core.
but you don't want to believe it. And then you don't want to believe that you have white privilege because you got your ass beat by cops. See, that's not, you literally
Oh,
did the crime
Biden is our
that they're
average
arresting you
president.
for.
He's the most average president in our
That should have
history.
been an indicator.
So
But he
don't go
wasn't
starting crazy
he
fucking
wasn't
fights.
willing to, hear all of that. And it's like,
I don't even like Biden, but still.
you can't expect
No
to
offense, North Vegas.
raise a black man as a white man into a black man. And I know that didn't make any lick of sense, but I'll explain. Is that you don't have the lived black experience, so you would not be raising
Yeah, that's
a
still
black
good.
man as a white man,
Continue
especially
with
if you refuse to look
from
at
from
history with an anti racist lens
Smell
and listen to black people's experiences in America. You're not going to be able to have the tools necessary to prepare that black child for the world that they're growing up in. And it's so sad that I have to explain it, but I'll give you an example. So, even though a lot of white folks are not going to believe me because, I'm the bad guy, I'm racist because I'm calling y'all out on y'all bullshit,
my roommate's on
but
vacation.
here's what happened. So, when I first started going to school in Oregon, I went to McLaughlin Middle School, and there was this, this biracial guy. Um, but he, in order to get the white guys' approval, he started saying the same anti black bullshit towards me just to be friends with them. And somehow that's my fault, but um, I didn't let it fly. I got on him about it. He got offended. Long story short, he left me alone.
Warrior Princess, yes, I
In
know.
our adulthood, for some reason, he was in my comments on Facebook, and he was like, systemic racism isn't real. And I'm like, okay, so you've never experienced racism?
I think you're a part of the
And he's all, and of course, he calls me every name under the sun. And he's all like, um,
most
white kids wouldn't accept me. They would say that I'm not
like my dad
black enough. And so
was
that's why I got into
top
the
influential on me,
skater
but his dad
culture.
was
And I'm
floating
like,
beautiful.
okay. And so
I mean,
all of these microaggressions that you experience from white people, okay. So now we have something to talk about. Don't you think that that's something worth bringing up since you've had those experiences with white people? And what did your white mom have to say about this? Did she give you the tools necessary to combat something like this? And clearly, from the way he was pissed off at me, the answer was no.
I'm very diagnosed.
And it's so sad because it's not that we like that things are the way that they are. It's quite simply that no matter what, we have to prepare our children for what we know they're going to experience in the future. And the fact that I have a biracial son and his father doesn't want to understand that he is going to have different experiences than him because of what they look like. The fact that he could not wrap his head around that. And it's like, you can't just say that you're not racist because you have a black girlfriend or something like that, but you're not willing to listen to the race talk. You're not going to tokenize me. I am going to call you out. This is a problem. And you can't, call yourself being a parent if you're not willing to explore that. And it's, a very painful, slippery slope kind of situation. But you know what? My son gets taken care of regardless. And his grandmother, who is a white woman, um, is definitely more open to having the conversation. I can have those conversations with her. She's learning to be an ally. And, she appreciates that I stop by and I give her the books necessary for her to do her own research on the topics that I talk about. I'm like, listen, so um, here's what fetishization is. Here's what tokenism is. Here's what colorism is. Because Eric is biracial, the topic of colorism is going to come up a lot. These are the things that you have to, prepare for in the black experience. But this isn't something that all white people are just going to magically believe me on, and it's not my problem. Oh, victimhood, victimhood this, victimhood that. Do what you got to do. It's not here for your approval. Whatever. Oh, no privilege for no one. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. Why do you think that privilege just means financial? Why? People with her mentality need to live in another country. Well, your ancestors should have picked their own goddamn cotton and we wouldn't have this problem.
I have read three different Bibles. One a King James from I think it was a 2010. Two a King James from before 1930, and three the Ethiopian Bible.
The Arabica sold you. Where is the hate for them? What is wrong with you? Okay, so if you wanted to talk up, and this is what a lot of racist white people like to do too, because they don't like it when Christianity is being critiqued. But I am actually 100% on board with having the conversation about the slave trade in Africa and how practitioners of Islam participated in that versus what happened in America with Christianity. I'm willing to do that compare and contrast scenario because that goes more in depth of the enslavement of people of African descent. That's doing nothing but quite literally helping what I'm trying to do, and that's to tell the entire situation, not just one particular part. In fact, I actually have a book on that because I was curious my damn self. Now that you bring it up, here we go. It's called Black Morocco: A History of Slavery, Race, and Islam. So, Like literally learning about these things is the goal. I would love to talk about it. I would love to talk about how you shouldn't use religion to subjugate people. That's the entire point of having the conversation.
That's why the gods are here. They want us to succeed. They want us to be strong.
Oh, being an American is somehow, a privilege. Oh,
They're
I
strong.
mean, okay. People refuse to believe that we you really think we live in the freest country in the world and that we're the best country in the world. And it's like, I don't think you quite realize that it's not normal to pay an arm, a leg, a kidney, and a lung for a college education.
They
Other
are
countries don't
around
have to go through
because
this,
the gods
but we
are
do. Why is
their
that? Why is it that we have so
protect
much money
them.
for
They
war,
have
but
their
we don't
goals.
have
They
no
have their
money
goals.
for socialized
But
medicine? Why?
that's
Why
why
is
when
that?
you go out and
Um,
embody the gods, reach out to the gods,
I
it
rate
makes
society based on how
you
well
more
do
worthy
you take
because
care
they
of your
feel
own people, and we don't
and
believe
you are making
in
a good
taking care of our
decision
own
to fall
people.
for their
We
potential.
believe in
They are
individualism.
always around in the sense
If you're poor,
of
that's your
you
fault.
can always call on them to
We
turn
never
your
want to
back.
critique the system that
Now they're
perpetuates it in the first
boastful to
place.
their own.
Homelessness
You don't
is
necessarily have to have your
profitable.
tax
A
return.
lot of states get their
Like
revenue
everyone has their own
from
shit they gotta
prisons.
do.
Why?
I don't know.
It's
I will
worth
work
looking
it. When I
into.
die, I will find out.
And I'm not surprised by the
I
information
don't
that
know
you'll
if I am
find.
worthy. If I am, I'll end up in Valhalla or Furtvanger. If I'm not, I'll end up in hell. Either way, I'll be with people around me who care and love me.
I suppose the third world war torn African countries are better. And that's just it, is that you literally think that Africa is just this backwater continent. And it's like, why do you think that? Why do you believe this?
I believe it, and I'm
It baffles
sad, but
people
also,
that
I think
Africa
in their
has
old age,
big
they're
cities. It
descendants of some
baffles people that they
predators.
have museums and running water and things like that. The issue is that you're not willing to look at the ways
Regardless of
that Africa is still being exploited
according
by
to their
Europe.
own worldview, he flooded the entire world and drowned billions of people. He set a plague upon an entire country, including insects,
Then go
flies,
move there and go to
flies.
school. Okay, so are you
Regardless,
going to pay me reparations so that I can go? That's a thing you could do. But again, if I bring that up, then white people get
the
butthurt all over again.
the wicked,
It's fine.
all but these two people, then by that logic, because only two people met your God's ideals, more
We
than
spend
likely
all of our
you
money to
will.
help other countries. No, we spend all of our money to overthrow democratically elected officials and replace them with capitalist
Exactly.
imperialist wingnuts.
Oh, honey, I have a whole box of wine back there. Yes, I'm not a classy bitch, but I'm feeling good.
Community college is cheap. Okay, but guess what though?
I'm so glad that you found a
A lot of
community
jobs
college.
are demanding bachelor's degrees, or not even that. They're demanding master's degrees, but for minimum wage
I
um,
believe all
pay,
faiths
and that's some
except for
bullshit.
Christianity is
And
universal because Christianity is the
the
only
funny
religion
part
that hasn't
is
changed in
that
5 to 10 years.
this is also a
I have one
classist
dog that's out
society.
there next to me.
So if you
She's
have
Christian.
a community
Every few
college
years, help
degree or whatever,
protect
people look
their
down on that.
kids.
If you just
All
have,
faiths
if you
means
have a
universal. I
bachelor's degree
believe
from
they're
a certain
universal
college,
then
people will look down on that.
denomination.
If you go
And
to
the
an
gods have created
HBCU,
different universes.
um,
And when you
predominantly white
serve the gods,
institutions will look
your soul
down
becomes
on a
attached to them
degree
no
from an
matter what your
HBCU
religion is.
versus a
You go to where you're meant to
predominantly
be.
white institution. Like, oh,
That's
a
the
bachelor's
ancient
degree
gods.
from Fisk University, that's laughable, but let me accept this um applicant who went to Colorado State or some shit.
Wish I had glasses. I couldn't
It's
see
not
this well.
even, like the fact that Yale, Harvard, Johns Hopkins University, these are places that are predominantly white institutions and have a
Yes, they're here
reputation that
because
so
we are
called
related
precedes them,
to the
but they
gods.
have
Because the
um,
gods
a
carved us
racist history
perfectly
as
in
well. But that's
graceful
something that we
forms.
don't want to address in this fucking country, and it's infuriating. But the point of believing in change is that you
I
want
get
to
you.
be able to make a positive
I get
change
you as
within
a
the
civilian
place you live instead of leaving. Personally, I do plan on leaving and moving to Nigeria. This is a goal of mine for the very distant future, but for right now, I have work to do here, and then um, going
I
from
just
there.
want y'all Christians to think for a second that y'all worship a God and y'all justify your God supposedly flooding billions of people. This
I'm
is no
thankful for the
different
white
than
people that
you
stood with black
worshiping
people to fight for their freedoms, and that's literally the bare
literally
minimum. That's what
at
I'm
the
talking
full
about. Is that it's
who
the bare
holds people
minimum
down by their throats
to
and
do the right thing. But
drums
then
them.
again, again, the
Your God is no different. Your God is no
that
different
plays
than a
into
homeless man
the white
being
savior
released from
complex
their
is that you
bondage.
literally want a round of applause for doing the exact bare minimum. You have to speak first, last, and the most often when it comes to marginalized issues
Christians
that don't
believe in a
affect
God
you, instead of centering the black and brown voices that are doing the actual work. I can't tell you how many times
around
black activists have talked about this and how sick we are of it, but it happens. But again, this is something that you're not willing to look into. Um,
dumb.
the world we live in.
Do you know what I'm loving right now?
What?
Half my comment section is upset and whining 14-year-old, white 14-year-olds for me spreading the truth, and the other half are women in POC who are like, keep fighting the good fight.
I know, right? I wish I could attract more people of color and black folk to my life, but I mostly
No,
just get
they're
butthurt white people. It's
they're
interesting, really, but
they
it
will
gets
always
annoying.
no, they will always be the majority, but that does not mean that other people in there aren't supporting you. I know I have good people in here supporting me. Well, I love you too. You're a sweetheart. Have a cookie tonight, you Frederick.
Everyone here is wasting their time. She has her mind made up, and there is no changing it. Wait, so you
What?
went to a
I'm
black
supposed to
person's
be
live
anti-black.
for the sole purpose of
Fair
trying
enough.
to change their minds about whether or not they experience racism. Is that it? Seriously, don't be that white. Just don't. It's easy not to.
Science proves that a lot of gods exist, just like the Christian God. I recommend looking up
It
pattern
wasn't the
metaphysics.
bare minimum. It was the beginning of
PATA.
change. The beginning of change
It's
is white
basically the
people giving a
science of
damn.
thinking.
Imagine that. You minimize any good if it's from a
Judging a
white person. You're the
14-year-old kid.
racist, bro. That's not how racism
If you're
works,
a
but okay.
14-year-old kid
Go off, I
and you're
guess.
under 18, you're still a kid.
It's literally
What am I
you,
LARPing
not
against
a
Jerry from a
dimwit,
fucking county? I'm wearing a
that
hoodie and a
refuses to
beanie.
realize the actual definition of racism. I do not have the structural power to oppress you. So you don't experience racism, experience prejudice. There is a flipping difference.
If you support women of color too, then okay.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite one of my
No pressure
favorite
for
authors is Zora Neale Hurston, and then Langston Hughes. I mean, apparently the one that needs the dictionary is you, because racism has to do with a marginalized group. White people are not marginalized because they're white. They
Tom, you don't understand. They called me a cracker once.
right? It's like that's not what that means at all. And it's like I don't know how many times that I have to say it. The fact that we have
Also,
two
all you
different
bada bunch of
Independence
staring
Days
about fucking NASA
should
crap like
tell
that.
you everything
Hey,
you need
Florida,
to know
since
about this country of
hey
so
y'all,
called freedom.
y'all saw my ass for free.
Black on black crime. See, there it is again. Okay, both world wars, white on white crime. Next.
Shit.
It's like it's so sad believing that black people are inherently violent. Black on black crime. The blacks are killing the
Put
blacks.
Joe Biden, but he's like, I don't know, 40% smarter than Trump. So
I'm saying you should, seek Merriam Webster
Texas
for
is fucking
definitions
it. No, they
because
literally cannot survive.
every single time a white person has tried to
They can
white
learn the brother
explain
of
to
fucking
me what
Trump.
racism is, they always leave out the word marginalized. And I feel like they do it on purpose.
Natural expertise is history.
Because you're not part of a marginalized group because you are white.
I at times aspire to be like my friend's old D&D character, who was an undead necromancer. And he was a special kind of undead called an elder, which meant that they would live forever. But they
Y'all
were
literally think that
designed
if a
to
black person gets rich, they no
always
longer experience racism.
and that's what I try to
I
say.
find that the
I try to be
most
like, I will not live forever,
telling
but I will live
about
for
what
a
you
very
think
long time,
racism is.
and I will record my the history around us in my head and try and relay it to others so it can go on into the future.
I don't really think
Oh,
there
just
are
my best
people
friends.
that get on another person's live and then legitimately learn something. I feel like you just get on a person's live to be antagonistic
Shunyoken and
and
a
myopic.
bitch.
And it's like Harlem Renaissance and jazz
Oh,
poetry.
the
Yeah,
things I see from the left and
it's a
right side of
really amazing
me
and
summons their hurt fifis.
beautiful part of Black history. And it's something that is
For
never even
worldwide
talked about
shows, so at the end of the day, you're part of them.
in an
That's
Oregon public school.
that's
It's
why
just not.
that's why I try
So when I say they
to learn
don't
about
know the
history
basics,
in
I am
parts and
very
not wholesome,
serious.
so I can be a part of the problem. I mean, a part of the solution.
Don't judge them by her hatred. I mean, the funny part is that black folk
I don't really know
understand
if they're hatred
exactly what
towards me.
I'm
I
saying.
just want to
It's
be better
only
at
white
life
people that are getting
than
butthurt by this.
a single portion of my ancestors were.
Just don't be that white. Stop trying to critique a community you are not a part of.
I don't hate either.
And
I
it
just am
helps
white
to
and
grow
I have
up
blonde hair.
in
My family's from
a more
Ireland,
diverse
so
neighborhood to
it's
try to,
yes,
but still, there's a lot of
except
whitewashed
for the ones
history
who fought in the Civil
within
War and were
our
Confederate.
schools, though. And that's a lot of the problem is that also people believe that learning is just simply for inside of the classroom instead of outside of the classroom as well.
What guild do I have? Some
And
miscorrection there.
it's
Yes, I have white guild. I have the
it's almost like we have to
little
have the same
Warcraft flag.
conversation over and over again until people decide to read a book.
Edgy American guy. Well, you
You will
know,
choose ignorance over truth. I mean, I
you're a
have
good
a bin full of
capitalist and
books
their own rulers, and
about the very subjects that I talk about, but
enslavement
go off on how I'm
is
the
some
ignorant one.
bullshit.
Absolutely. Just do what you got to do. Nah, you just keep digging up old graves. See, you literally have the privilege of ignoring
Right
this
up the
shit.
frame. We don't even the top of the frame.
It's like you think that it's old because you don't see it happening because you don't have to. Most people, and how would you know? You're not black. That's just it. When I say don't be that white, I literally mean
Very
don't
simple.
be that white person that critiques the black
Or
community,
gibberish, but
a
it doesn't make
community
any
you are not a part of.
sense.
I cannot stress enough how many times I've had to say that and it just goes in one ear and out the other because y'all think y'all are supposed to be the
Oh, I
experts
hate
on
that.
black folks. And it's the entitlement for me. Nowhere on that link does it say marginalized yet because y'all like to erase that word from y'all minds.
Trump during his last time trying to get drunk fucked up.
Trust me, if you look in the dictionary, the word marginalized is in the definition of racism. Yeah, you're such an expert on white people. I'm an expert on the microaggressions that I receive from white people. In fact, I remember interacting with some white folks that believe in the Confederate flag. And I'm like, this may be the only opportunity that I will ever have to see why they believe in flying racist um, symbolism. And it's kind of interesting because you would think that someone that flies a flag that quite literally represents upholding slavery as an institution in all Confederate states, um, that they would hate black people with a passion. That's not the case at all. These people love black culture, but they don't give a damn about black issues. Like one of the girls in this family, what she did was she for Mother's Day played the song Dear Mama by Tupac. Now, if you understand the history of that song and why it's so ironic that of all songs she would choose that one for her white ass mama who believes in the Confederacy, it's like Tupac's mom was a whole ass Black Panther and that was the song you wanted to go with. That's the song you rolling with. That's weird as fuck. What is it about black culture? Like you want to participate in it and but you don't want to be concerned with black people issues. Like that's my entire issue with the entire thing. So that was my one takeaway from people that fly the Confederate flag. They love black culture so damn much, but the second that a black person talks about racism, they get butthurt. Like y'all.
Because I am over 200 pounds and for 5 years. I was 168 for the most of my first half of my TikTok career, and I'm over. And that is not fucking nothing. And it feels great because both my partners like to have me.
70% of my church congregation, like literally stop tokenizing black people in your life.
Like, they struggle
Y'all are
so
something else.
hard with fucking
But hey, you don't join somebody's live because you're hoping to open up your own mind. No, you go on there to white explain the black experience and
also another
essentially just spew the same bullshit you were fed growing up.
appreciate you guys for your time.
It's very simple. I read books. I can provide the titles of if you had questions on a particular subject, I can direct you to the book that would be most fitting to tell you more about it. That's the point of education is that if you can provide resources, if you can provide historical context, if you can see patterns within present day that are still perpetuating um, these topics today, that's a win. And weirdly enough, um,
It's a great song. This is the
what
vulnerable
was a
part
heavy indication for me that
we're so used to
a
being.
lack of knowledge about American history in its totality, what was a heavy
Yeah,
indicator
that's
was
the
the
worst
fact that white
part.
people
Is
were
that
comparing wearing a cloth mask to slavery. Like
I
that
think
was an
our opinion
indication enough that
is
you
usually a
downplay
fucking
slavery
job.
so much
They
that a minor
downplay fucking
inconvenience is
racism
somehow
of white
comparable to
Americans
chattel
versus
slavery. And that is the
non-racism
biggest form of just
saying
sheer white ignorance I had ever encountered. Or saying that vaccination cards are just like um, the yellow star during the Holocaust. And it's like, are you fucking crazy? Have you lost your mind?
how does one abort a Viking? How does one get a job before getting a job? Think about your insults next time.
She doesn't read books written by a white person, though. Why would I read a book uh, written by a white person about the black experience? That you do see how that's problematic, right? And plus, Richard Rothstein, the guy that wrote The Color of Law, is a white man.
Also, Dom, isn't that like me saying, "Hi, I once burned a man alive with a flamethrower. Let me tell you about the burned skin experience."
There's there's no but. Tyra-
These are just
Masks are not tyrannical. And I don't the fact that you think
once
that
in a
that's what
while,
tyranny
and
is,
I got shot in the
the
theater.
privilege.
Yeah, that didn't heal well. And that's not a joke. I got shot in my left shoulder.
Mandates are. What? You were asked to wear a mask, and it is tyranny because you were asked to wear a mask.
When
Wow!
when you've been privileged for too long, inconvenience feels like oppression.
When you've been privileged for that long, inconvenience would
Oh,
seem like
honey,
oppression. Like, that's
I
just
got
it.
shot through the skull.
What a
Like it's
black person
soothing.
thinks
I
oppression
want
is
to take the
versus what a
blood
white
spit back in
person
your face.
thinks oppression is, that should tell you right the fuck there.
I've heard three different versions.
You're forced, not asked. Well, if you don't want to be asked to wear a mask when you enter into a restaurant, cook the fuck at home. That's your big problem. You are living your life through books. Well, earlier I was called
But
uneducated. Which
slavery,
one is it?
Christians always end up supporting slavery.
Read Torture for Christ. And I'm just like,
We torture for Christ. Wasn't your God killed by torture, you sadistic fuck?
y'all are weird. Oh my god.
More masks.
If you choose not to wear a mask, that's fine. You can stay home.
No,
A
masks
business
don't
has the
stop
right to
crime.
refuse you. See, before you even considered um, a mask as a violation of bodily autonomy, there were homeless people that would look at signs that say
So
no
you're
shoes,
saying that
no shirt, no
harm researchers
service,
who have been doing
but you wasn't
heart
worried about
surgeries
that.
on babies have weaker lungs
See,
than you?
that's
Shut
classist.
the
But
fuck
see, that
up.
didn't affect you because you weren't homeless. You didn't have that lived experience. But now that everybody is being told to wear a mask, all of a sudden you're crying, I'm being oppressed because I'm being asked to follow a simple direction.
They should mandate 1,000 per fucking set. And I'm talking people tying you the fuck down and putting masks on you
I
for
pray your
no
child doesn't
reason.
carry the hatred
Only
you do.
because you're fucking
Holy shit. The fact that you think this is
obsessed with
coming from a
fucking
place of
clothes.
hatred, no. This is just coming from a place of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. The fact of the matter is, I do
Yeah,
work
but
with
COVID
white
is
people in
actual
activism
bullshit.
work,
Like,
and they
vaccinating
understand
vaccines is
what
really.
true allyship
Vaccinating
is.
vaccines did
And
not
we
die of COVID.
share a
But
common goal.
the liberals
And that's
are
my job,
refusing to
is
take the
that
vaccine and
if they
fucking
have
dying.
questions about, okay, we want to raise awareness about a topic, I'm like,
Natural
okay,
selection.
I will go ahead and do the
Yeah,
research
get your
necessary
voice cracked. Like that.
to talk about how this affects black and brown communities because we're going to have different experiences within the same country. That's just the facts of life. Oregon, for example, black exclusionary laws, eugenics histories. That's Oregon. That has happened. And once again, and I cannot stress this enough, if you go to JSTOR.com, which is a wonderful online database of periodicals, scholastic journals, historical articles, what have you, you will find articles on Oregon where it brings up its
Sorry,
eugenics
sorry, Dom.
past. And that's why we say
It's
that
alerting to the
ableism
soft.
is a byproduct also of white supremacy. But
See, look at this right here.
people just say I'm the activist that cried white supremacy. So it's like I oftentimes wonder what is the use of explaining this to y'all when during the day when I get paid for this shit is actually, you know, worth talking about.
Ships on bigger than the waves and swimming. Where is the
Why,
shiver?
if they ask you to
Crossing
remove your hair
the
scarf?
horizon is a new
Well,
beginning. Rise
analyze
and
that.
pray.
Would that be the
The
same
world's a
as
beautiful
being asked to wear a mask
world.
during a
Once
pandemic?
upon a time,
No. And if they're asking me
just
to
a
remove my
sign.
headscarf, I feel like a better question um,
Man, this weird animation
is it
here.
Islamophobic to ask a person to remove their hijab? It is. And it's anti black for. And also, now that you bring up my hair wrap, this is an excellent conversation about anti-blackness within the workplace. If I were to come into the workplace like this would be seen as unprofessional, bar none. This would be seen as unprofessional. And what is professional but defined by what white people deem to be appropriate? That's what professionalism is. Black people already know this. When we watch sitcoms that are based on the black experience, topics like this get discussed all the time. Case in point, there was this TV show back in the 90s. It was called Living Single. And T.C. Carson, my favorite actor from that time, because he had the sexiest deep voice ever. Anyways, so there was an episode of Living Single where he wanted to invest money in Africa. He worked at this super ritzy firm in New York, and that was his job. Was that
Then keep
essentially he
turning
was a
and
black petty
watching.
capitalist. But anyway, so
I
he
will
wanted
keep the
to
imperfections of
invest in
love around
Africa,
you. Your fucking
and he
family and
also
friends. Do
wanted
not. You
to
deserve
get a
that love.
promotion.
Do not.
And he was wondering, why aren't they giving me the promotion? So he asked the one other black employee there that
And your age.
had that high
Don't
level
care.
position. So he asked him,
Forget
he
your
was like,
last
brother, let me
name.
ask you something. Um, why didn't they
I'm
like the
not a
pitch?
Democrat.
Why are they not appealing to
Just because some
what I have to say?
politician is a Democrat,
So
I'm
then
not
his black
talking about.
coworker said,
Lemon himself
lose the hair.
said
Not
that
necessarily like
these
that,
people, the
but he
poor working
said,
class
you
people,
have
are not
locks. And at the time, T.C. Carson, the actor, he had this fade, and then on top of his head, he had um, locks. And I thought it was gorgeous.
what am I
But anyway,
complaining about?
so
I'm
the black
I'm
CEO or
not
whatever is
fucking
like,
I'm
you
a
have
proud
to
communist, and I'm
lose
talking
that
about
part of
some
yourself, essentially.
motherfucker who talked about
It
women
was
who should
literally
not own our guns.
an episode about hair discrimination. We're not allowed to show um, Afrocentrism. We're not allowed to do the things that white people are allowed to do in that regard. It's not that we hate it when you wear um, black hairstyles. The fact of the matter is, when you culturally appropriate black hairstyles, we get condemned for wearing our own damn hairstyles
Okay, then
that were meant for us. And y'all get butthurt when we set that boundary, and then y'all microaggress and you wear it anyway. You will literally get your hair all fucked up just to culturally appropriate something that was meant for black people. I have seen this shit happen on TikTok many a time.
some of them.
Mostly from, white women trying to rock box braids and then it ends up fucking up their scalp. Yeah, we tell you not to do this shit for a reason, but y'all don't want to listen. But that's just it, is that we're concerned about the hair discrimination that we go through. We're concerned about name discrimination. We have to name our children certain names so that they are they stand a better chance in the job market. For example, my son's name is Eric.
You could not sound whiter.
I mean, what if I had named him something like
Aquarius.
Darius or Trayvon or something like that? He is going to experience uh, name discrimination within the job market. They are going to judge his resume simply based off of his first name, and he's not even going to get so much as an interview. But looking at his name, Eric, oh, let me get an interview with him. But these are things that y'all don't have to think about.
Sorry, they're also on live. Yes, they have their own TikToks. They go by respect research. But the C is
Really. T Dub 471. I'm black here. You do have a lot of hate in you. Okay. And have white people picked you yet? Is my question for you.
Did this bitch just look at this peak prime African woman and really say, did the white people pick you up? Motherfucker! White people jerk off to you.
Shut up, Zach. No, what they were saying was, oh, I'm black, by the way, even though their profile picture is like a fucking cartoon or some shit like that. But anyway, so they're saying, I'm black and you have a lot of hate in your heart and you're setting the black race back or whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, y'all are tired as fuck. The fact that I have explained many times that there is a such thing as um tokenizing, where there will be a black mouthpiece that spouts anti-black rhetoric, and white people tend to cling to that tokenized person
I mean, to be
because
fair,
it fits their agenda. But the majority of black people are saying, no, this is fucking wrong, and here's why. But as long as they have that one person that is saying some right wing bullshit, white people are on board. It's weird as fuck, but it happens.
I mean, that's why they're usually run by white Christian Protestants.
Oregon is a Democrat run state. And
Shut the
the
fuck
fact that
up!
we have so many fucking Trump supporters here, so many sundown towns here, so many, like, literally, like, do you live in Oregon? Do you know how
Also,
many
45 minutes and 50
fucking
seconds.
MAGA bumper stickers I see around here? The fact of the matter is that metropolitan cities tend to be blue. So it's kind of like Texas. Obviously not in size, but
Because Texas is a really small.
but because
Because
I was listening to what my roommate was saying, but basically more rural areas they vote red, and then metropolitan
and
areas they
guess
vote
what, fuckers?
blue.
I will say
And
everything's smaller in
when people think
Texas.
of Oregon,
I will
unfortunately, they
literally
think of
say,
Portland, and this is something that Southern Oregonians
compared to
hate
Alaska, shut the fuck
with a
up.
passion, and I get it. Because the culture is it's different out here. It really is. Move to a black neighborhood and live happily ever after. Yeah, because racism just stops if you just live in a black neighborhood. That totally just yup. That is definitely a white person way to think about how black liberation works.
You don't get it. Just exist around black and you'll be safe. It's like 1 plus 2 equals 17.
They really like to call black people professional victims. It's really weird because no one calls the manager quicker than a white person.
I'm gonna fuck you later. Just for this.
And then they keep calling my hair wrap a towel. I mean,
No,
that's
sorry.
like, okay, whatever.
Sorry that you're so insecure that you wipe your ass with what someone uses to wrap their hair.
Hmm.
But I mean that makes sense because you use toilet paper and you use wraps delivered by the gods.
when a white man comes in with a long mullet to work, do you find that unprofessional?
Yes, I do not trust
Why
the
does it
mullet.
matter if I find it professional or not? D- Depending on where he works at, I highly doubt he works in corporate. I will say that. I feel like if he wears a mullet to work, he works in construction and like I assume it would be more of a blue collar setting. You weren't born in Africa, so get with the program. Wow. It's like, just say you're racist and go.
On behalf of every other mayonnaise monkey ever, shut the fuck up, you fucking dollar store brand raisin and potato salad
And
looking
then
ass. Age is just a number. Let me fuck my daughter in law.
put an end to it. It's long as hell. Like, wrap it up. Damn.
That's the point. I want to insult them for as long as possible.
Anyway, Mimi Gen 81. Hey, I remember the episode that you're talking about. Yeah, that episode of Living Single, that is that was the reality. That's why I really love that TV show and why to this day I will say that Living Single was way better than Friends. Using fiction to support fiction. I didn't know that any of the books that I had, like this one
Don't
or
put it.
this one was fiction. I thought that these were written by creditable historians, but all right, if
You and I
no sweat
both.
off my back.
You and I both know that you own more books than they have brain cells.
Like again, like it's so microaggressive to continuously call a hair wrap a towel. And it's like you're doing it and it's it's astounding that you still think that I'm the one that has the so-called hatred in my heart when all I've been doing this entire time is quite literally calling out the kinds of white people that I interact with. Apparently, some of y'all don't even live in Oregon, so that just goes to show that no matter where it is that I go, white people are going to have this idea. So it almost is like it's definitely enough of you that you have this collective idea about black people, and that's why we have a lot of the issues that we have today concerning anti-blackness in America.